In this mini lesson, we'll be focusing on dramatic form. If you are studying the HSC this year, just have a little look on screen now and find the drama text that you're studying for your particular module. And you can hold that in your mind as we're going through some of the dramatic features and think about how you might apply some of these to your specific text. This presentation is free for teachers. If you'd like to use it in your classroom, there is a link in the description to a version that doesn't have a voiceover. There's also a worksheet that can check student understanding at the end. Why do form-specific features matter? Because your marker is an English teacher, and English teachers love to hear that you appreciate form and understand its unique, distinctive features. What sets a play apart from a poem or a novel away from a film? Infusing your essay with form-specific features and terminology will make your responses stand out. The trial and HSC exam questions can actually focus entirely on form and features. So that's another reason it's important to be able to explain how all the forms are varied and different and special. So what is distinctive about the play form, the dramatic form? It's live, it's viewed in just one sitting, maybe 2 to 3 hours usually. Depending on the size of the theatre, it can be quite intimate if you're up close. It can be a bit expensive and therefore a little bit exclusive. So if you do go to the theatre, you'll often find the bulk of the audience are made up of retirees, older people who have access to a disposable income and of course time to go to the theatre as well. The other thing about theatre is that there's no retake, there's no editing. So it's a highly coordinated, rehearsed production that takes a great deal of skill to be in. Just a note, the creator of a play is called a dramatist or a playwright, and the person who brings the play to life on stage is called a stage director. Okay, let's get into the structural features of a drama text. They are created in acts. They're the main dividers or divisions in a play. Though some plays like Wit by Margaret Edson can be just one act, a continuous act for effect. Sometimes they're 5-act plays or 2-act plays. And within those acts, you usually have scenes, which are smaller divisions that go into the acts. The scenes are, of course, written in lines, and most plays have an intermission in the middle. It's just a short break, and it's usually a chance to talk to the people you've come to the theatre with about what you think. And it often happens just before the climax or just after the climax. And it makes it fun and people get a drink, and it allows for people to guess what's going to happen next as well. When studying a play, it's really important that you treat it as a live performance, and it's best if you can go and see a live performance. If you can't see a live performance, your school might have access, if they're lucky enough, to digital theatre, where you can view live recordings of stage productions. But you're not studying it as a script on a page, even though, of course, in classes you do open the script and look at the page. But we're thinking of it as a production, so how it would be performed on stage. So because of this, don't write in your responses, in Act 2, Scene 3, la la la, because it's meaningless. We teach for decades and we still don't know what Act 1 and Act 5 mean, or I don't anyway. Instead of using those sorts of numerical phrases, instead replace it with explanatory detail, so that no matter how many times the person has or hasn't read the play or seen it, they know what section you're referring to, such as Hamlet stalks around the tapestry. When we say that and we know Hamlet, we know exactly where we're referring to, and it shows good knowledge of the text as well. Okay, a reminder that form-specific features are those that are only available to the playwright or the dramatist, same thing, and they can include So dialogue is just when characters are speaking to one another. When you do open up the play script in front of you, all of the lines where a character is speaking are dialogue. A monologue, as is suggested by the prefix mono, means just one character speaking at length, and people don't interrupt them. A soliloquy is a bit different in that the character is alone, or they believe they're alone, and they're speaking their innermost thoughts aloud. So it might be their darkest desires, it might be their motivations, or what they really think compared to what they've been performing like Iago. An aside is when a character says, usually quite briefly, their inner thoughts, and the other characters may be on stage and they act as though they can't hear them. I often remember this word by thinking that it's sort of spoken out the side of your mouth. So you might be saying, "Oh, hello, Hayley. Oh my goodness, I hate that girl." And Hayley can't hear what you've just said. Staccato is when you're speaking in short fragments and characters interrupt one another, and it mimics the natural speech patterns of ordinary humans because we don't usually give people time to speak and finish every phrase. We kind of talk over one another at times and interject. So that's a staccato style of speech. Some of the more obvious dramatic devices are stage directions. They're the instructions that direct tone, movement, action, sound effects and lighting, but very important when you're studying a play. Stage lighting, it's obvious. Props, those things that are used on stage like a mop or a envelope, etc. And costume is what the characters are wearing, including their shoes, their jewellery, and how they are characterised in their clothes. Some of the more complex dramatic devices include dramatic irony. So that's when the audience are aware of something that a character or characters are not aware of. The example I always use is when you're at a pantomime as a little kid and you see someone on stage, and behind the person on stage is a big purple bear that keeps moving to the left and to the right when the character turns their head, and all the kids are saying, "He's behind you," and the woman or man has to pretend that they don't know where the bear is. So that's a basic sort of example of dramatic irony. Breaking the fourth wall, if you think of the stage as having the back wall being the first wall, the left wall being the second wall, and the right wall being the third wall, that is the world of the play, and then the front wall between the audience and the play is the fourth wall. And when a character sort of breaks it and says something to the audience, directly to them, this is called breaking the fourth wall. Iago uses it a lot in Othello. And so does the character in House of Cards. Often evil characters are very good at breaking the fourth wall. Also does Prospero at the end of The Tempest. He asks the audience to clap, to applaud him at the end. Proxemics is all about the distance between characters. And strictly speaking, this can be used across many forms. Like picture books use proxemics, as do film. But anyhow, it is important in a drama piece. So if you've got characters who are cuddling, that obviously conveys love, whereas if you've got two characters in a living room that are not talking with one another and as far apart as they can be, they're obviously in tension. So that's what proxemics is, like proximity. A polyphonous script is a script that allows characters to speak simultaneously at the same time. There's a little bit of this in Wit, when the doctor and the main character are speaking both at once and using very different language, and that's used to great effect. And it's very well used in Osage County, incredibly well used, where a family's interactions become exceptionally real because they're talking all over one another, like real families do. Now we're going to go through a few other terms that are available to composers of other forms, but are still very useful for your study of a play text. So, suspension of disbelief. This is what we all do when we go to the cinema. We enter the world of the text, and for the 2 hours that we're in the theatre or the cinema, we pretend that what we're watching is real, even though we know it's not. So this is something interesting about humans, this ability to suspend our disbelief for art. It's very annoying to be somebody who can't suspend their disbelief, particularly if you're watching or reading even fantasy, because you're constantly saying goblins aren't real and dungeons and dragons are not real beings, etc. And you wreck it for yourself and for others. Hamartia is the fatal flaw, the flaw that leads to the protagonist's downfall. So with Othello, it's jealousy. And it can always be useful to think about what your own fatal flaw might be. We call it a hamartia. Catharsis is the purging of repressed negative emotions through watching a film or attending a theatre show, etc. So The Notebook, when we all have a good cry at the end of that, that is a cathartic experience. And hopefully we feel a little bit better once we've gotten rid of those negative emotions. And finally, one of my favourite words, but I struggle to say it, is verisimilitude. And this is the appearance of being real or true. And this too is useful for literary worlds, for those of you who are studying extension English, because it is the appearance of being real or true. And the more lifelike or realistic, let's say, the easier it is usually to suspend your disbelief. Some postmodern playwrights are not attempting for their creation to feel like you're in the real world with the characters. Some of them are actually drawing attention, as postmodernists do all the time, to the fact that it's a constructed work of art. So you might have a character changing their costume on stage to say, hey, this isn't real. But dramas like kitchen sink dramas, where you're really meant to feel that you're in somebody's home watching a family unfold, they do attempt to achieve a sense of verisimilitude. If you'd like to check your understanding or your students' understanding of the dramatic terms that we've been over in this presentation, you might like to click on the link in the description, head over to the website where you can download and print very easily the Cluey Find-a-Word that you can see on screen. There are also other resources there that are aiming to help all Year 12 students get the very best results they can. Thank you for listening. I hope this has been helpful.